Babes. I've really loved seeing the kinds of things that you are interested in as I posted in the Crafty Babe crew group. I would love to kind of address some of your questions with a little crafty chat and kind of a little bit of an update on like my project status and kind of how I stay, I don't stay current. I am always a little bit behind, but just kind of how I keep that process going so that I don't get too far behind. And then I think we're just going to chat a little bit while I trim up some photos. I have printed a replacement from the end of April because I accidentally did something weird with my photos and how they ended up on my template. So I'm just going to go through these. And then also I am printing for May in a little bit of a different format. So my friend and all of our friends, Jessica Upton, she is always coming up with the coolest layouts, and she also scrapbooks in a 6x8 album outside of the pockets, like unpocket pages like me. She loves to do grids too, and she's been printing her photos with like a long border, like almost a long Polaroid size. Very, very intriguing to me. So I decided to get my little trusty ruler and my pencil and my 7 by 9.5 page pages that I use for my 6x8 album and see if that would work and do my own little template. So I'm really excited to try that. So these are photos from, I have to organize all of these. So these are like the last 2 or 3 weeks of April along with these. So we'll organize them together, I think, as well. Because I do like to organize them as part of the batch process that I do with my photos. And that is, you know, in order to organize them based on what album that they go into, as well as, I used to get real fancy and write the dates on them, but I kind of stopped doing that. So now I just organize them by week, whether it's a weekly recap for my personal album, whether it's monthly for my family album, or whether it's more of a story-based set of photos. And then I kind of just clip them together with a little paper clip and, you know, call it good. And then I just reach for that when I'm ready to craft. So it is a little bit of me doing some prep work, which I always really enjoy doing, because what I don't want to do when I'm ready to sit down and get creative is do mindless work like this. I save this task for, like, you know, midday when I just need a little break from the computer, or first thing on a Saturday morning before my craftiness really kicks in. So this is the size that I figured would fit really nicely. I just put those pages away. Oh, here's one right here. So this is the 7 by 9.5 template that I cut my paper out in order for me to like do either like a grid like this, where I can fit 3 across and 3 down, and then I have room for maybe like a border down here, or if I scooch them down, then I have room for a border or a titling situation up here. Or I've even done it to where I give myself a little bit more space in between. The other way is maybe even doing like an alternating one so that they're not sitting exactly next to each other, but you still get that idea of a grid, and then that way you have a little bit of freedom. And these wouldn't all be photos, but like if you had a card down here, you cut down a piece of pattern paper, you'd be able to see, you know, a little bit of extra space down here to kind of play and mess with that. So to me, grids still provide so much flexibility and freedom for me. I also use this size for my 3x4s. They fit perfectly to do my little unpocket pages. There's a perfect amount of white space in between, so that always looks really nice. But I loved what Jessica did with these larger photos. So I love to scrap lift a good design, and I think this would work out really well. And that way you have some extra journaling or decorating space along the bottom there of each photo. I think I measured, and it's going to be pretty tight. Yeah, but I still love that. I love that there's plenty of room that doesn't get in the way of the holes, and you can still, these are 4x2, and so with that you would still be able to take a 3x4 card and just, like, for instance, take this 3x4 card and you could just trim part of it down so that you can still use 3x4 cards and get, you know, those out of your stash. So I'm really excited about this format. I am doing this for my weekly recaps and also my not 10 on 10, because I'm still going to do those. That 10 photos won't fit even on like 2 pages. I like to have enough room for lots of decoration, and all 11 photos actually, because I usually do a title plus the 10 photos. So I'm using them for, I said monthly recaps, and like this, for instance, this was a series of photos, and so I'm going to do a whole layout with just these. And I'm really excited about that. So we're just trimming here, and this is just one of the parts of my batch processing that I do. I usually manage my photos once a month. It usually happens mid-month. I've always tried to make it happen around the beginning of the month so that mentally I'm just printing all of the previous month's photos at once. But that just doesn't seem to be part of my rhythm for some reason. So I just know that it's been a month when it gets to be about the second week of the month. And that's just when I make sure that all of my photos are synced up to Google Photos. I take the Google Photos and I search by date range for 1 week at a time. I put all of the photos that have been edited that I want to print, and I put them in a new folder. So I start a new folder within Google Photos, and from there, then I download all of those into one zip file. That then gets extracted, and those are the photos that get put into these templates that I make. I also do a second process where I take that same date range and I select all of them and I put them all into a zipped file, and that's just another one of the ways that I archive. That way I don't have to sort through all of the photos and videos that are not going to get documented. I just like having an easier way to get to the photos that actually got edited and need to be printed. So then in my folder, I end up having a weekly folder for printed photos that need to be printed, and a weekly folder for photos that it's just called all, because it includes video and photos. So that's just a little bit of a peek into my printing process and my archiving process. What else did I want to chat about? I want to chat about being current and how that is practically unrealistic. I mean, when you just think about it, there's no way that you could be current or caught up, because every day you're making new memories and you're taking new pictures, and you're not crafting and documenting those things on the day that they happen. So if we're living life, we are going to be behind in our documenting, and I am just okay with that. The other thing I'm okay with is calling projects incomplete and knowing that I'm not going to get back to them, and knowing that I've done everything I could at the time to do as much documenting as I could. So I want to show you if I have it. Nope, I don't have it near me because I just kind of purged, not really purged, but I put away a bunch of older projects that I knew I wasn't going to get back to. One of those being my 2020 family album. I was using a memory planner type of situation from Maggie Holmes. And the idea was that I had a calendar, a monthly calendar in the front for every month. And I was trying to write in things that happened. And I did the same format for 2021. For 2020, I did my best to create pages within the months that were family related. And I did, I did a pretty good job, but I printed more photos than I could actually document. And for 2021, it was kind of the same thing. And I'm just okay with that. I'm actually really proud of myself for being able to write down the things that actually happened through the month on that monthly calendar. And I feel less guilty that I didn't scrapbook all of the photos. So I'm just okay with the fact that I wrote down things. I made notes about like the shows that we were watching or places that we went or insignificant things that we did. It's not all about like birthdays and big events. So I feel good about that. I just don't know that I have the desire or the bandwidth to go back and try to scrapbook all of those photos. So the fact that the photos are printed, I know that they are all what year they're from. And, I have scrapbooked since 1998. And I have so many scrapbooks of my family and of the boys growing up, and every little detail that we've gone through and done as a family, that if I missed completing a year or two here or there, I am just okay with that. And I don't think that in 45 or 50 years that my family is going to have a conniption or anything, that there's some holes in the memory keeping. I just don't think that I want to stress about that. So at this point, I am leaving them where they are, and I am just calling them complete. And for 2022, I have a much better format that's much easier for me to manage. Let me show you that. I went back to an 8.5 by 11 for family, and I'm doing a monthly spread. So I'll still have lots of things to document, but my family album just doesn't get as much love because as a family, we're doing less things. I'm getting less pictures of the boys. They're old. So I'm going to do a monthly spread for each month using this template that I made. Versions of this template are available in my shop, but it's just really fun to be able to throw everything in. And if I needed to do something different or extra, I would just add some pages in. I would add another grid in and just be like, this is something different. So I'm working on, I have my March photos ready to go. I'll work on my March. Hopefully this weekend. I would love to get back into this because this format is actually super, super duper fun for me. In the beginning, the templates that are available have this option on the side where it's blank, and there's options for this to be blank on the right side or the left side. And the reason for that is because originally when these were created, they were meant to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But as I'm realizing I need a little bit more room, and I don't need this extra space. I have a lot of room at the top and I have a little bit of room at the bottom. And so what I did for starting for March is I actually made all 4 rows, all 4 columns on both pages. This way, sorry, this is like clinking and it's bugging me. Now I think I need to print that other side because, yeah, I need to print the opposite side because this is actually meant to have holes here. I just need to print the right side with the holes on the correct side. But that means that I have a whole extra column for myself for photos and cards. That'll work out much better for me as far as being able to kind of cram as much as I can for the month in. Just as an example, I think I have, my March, and I'll have to cull these photos. I won't be able to include all of these, but so far I have quite a few things that I would consider family photos versus things that are more personal for my personal, like my outfits and the food that I eat and the shows that I watch and stuff like that. So I'm always going to be behind, and I think you guys are too, and that's just kind of how it is. But we can keep current by staying on track as far as having some sort of process for making sure that our photos get printed and a process for making it as easy as possible to not only get them printed, but to get them documented. So for me, that just means having a process that's easy for me. I need things to be as simple as possible. I feel like every time I say that, I just think of Shelby from Steel Magnolias when she's like wants to cut her hair because she's got this little baby running around, and that's just kind of how I feel like I need to live my life. If there's a barrier to getting to a certain point, I will likely not do it. It'll get put off. So I want to be able to make sure I'm making things easy so that they get done. And this printing process works for me. You might have your own that might be perfect for you, but you just got to keep it up and get it done. So what we're going to do after I get all these things chopped up, I'm probably going to not talk you through the organizing part of my photo organizing, but I will potentially do a little bit of a voiceover so that maybe if there's little things here and there that I want to tell you about while I'm doing that I don't miss those opportunities. But it is a little tedious and, probably not something that you need to see me do, putting photos into piles and then me telling you what they're for. So we'll do that. And then what I would love to do after that is take you through creating a brand new page in my 6x8 album and potentially even using this new format size. I'm super duper excited about it. I have 10 on 10 also for both April and May that we could work on. So we'll see. Once I get things organized, it always helps me get familiar with the photos that I have. And when I go through my photos, especially because they're recent, I get energized. I get inspired to get crafty. I get inspired to tell certain stories. So to me, going through your photos, even going through them once a month, really helps to keep that momentum going. And another thing that I love to do while I'm organizing my photos is that if I have like a grouping of photos that I know are going to go together, like for example, this day, or these are family, but let's just say that these 4 pictures were from a day and I wanted them to all go together. I might even take this opportunity to go look through my stash and find some photos or some cards, some cards or some pattern papers that would go with this. That way, that decision is made while I'm touching these. Then that way that decision is made. I can put them all together and I can get them into the box of photos and things that I'm ready to work on. So I actually have this really cute Gen D tray here. I forget what this is called, but it's these flat trays. They're so fun. I'm actually right now keeping current projects in here, like current pages with their respective stuff. Like as I've collected things, I know that I want this to go with this picture, this little card thing, this big photo, and this roller skate. Like, so I know that all of these things are in here and that decision is made. And the same with this little set of photos right here. This is for one of my weekly recaps, and I want to use some florals here, and I wanted them to go with some of these new papers that I printed from, pretty sure this is from Humble and Create. So that kind of thing really helps, so then I don't have to make that decision again. The decision is made, and when I'm ready to have an actual sit down craft session, I can pull this bin out and go, sweet, I'm gonna work on this. Then all I have to do is find some embellishments, lay everything out, and the hard decisions are done. So that's another part of my process that really helps me stay engaged and inspired and motivated and all of those things. So we are gonna do a little fast forward here on some organization of these photos, and I will be back to work on a page with y'all. Okay, we are now going to organize some photos. So what I usually need to keep on hand are some Post-it notes, and I just kind of start grabbing photos after I've written the week number, or if I've written like the event that it is, like if it's a 10 on 10, I'll write that on the sticky note. Now normally I would write it actually on the bottom because of the way that I fold these sticky notes over my groupings of photos, but I forgot to do that. Anyway, I don't like to place the sticky part on the photo. I tend to place it on the back, but this time I kind of messed up. Something always goes wrong when I'm filming. But anyway, I'm writing down the week numbers. I'm writing down also if it's just family for the month. Like I think one of those was family stuff for April. And now I know which ones are 10 on 10 for each month because I have kept them together. When I trim them out, I usually will put them in separate piles, and then that's usually when I do this process, but I kind of just threw them all in a pile when I printed them and cut them, and so now I have to go back and do all the work. But that is okay. So what we're going to do is continue just going through, and you see me going to my computer and I'm referencing Google Photos so I can confirm the actual week that these photos sit in, and that's normally that process there. I also have some duplicates, like for the garden photos, I do want to include some in my personal album as well as my family album. So I just grabbed a few that were of the family size, and I grabbed the ones that I wanted to craft with and actually document, and then I set the others aside. There's always photos that don't make the cut. They just go into a little drawer and I can pull from them for other projects if I'm looking for something, but they sometimes just don't make the initial cut for getting to the week. And from here, what you may not see me do right away because I kind of forgot that this was part of the process, I will start to put these into clipped little groups, but what I forgot to do was take out the items or the photos that I actually want to have separate stories of. So a lot of these are going to be just like a recap of the week, but some of them need to be specifically grouped together separately, like they need to kind of be pulled out. So you'll see me here pulling out a few, like these are my hashtag me and my week photos so that I can continue getting those documented, and Marshall is showing me something on his iPad so you get to see that too. And like the garden photos, I wanted to make sure that those were kept. separately. I have some lemon photos and some skating photos that I want to do separate documenting pages about. So I usually will just write the date and what is maybe just what the hashtag is or what the subject is, just so that, you know, in 4 weeks when I finally get to these, I will not forget. And then I'm left with just kind of a pile of random photos for that week. And I usually will try to just do a weekly recap and kind of like just recap the week, honestly. Sometimes it'll be weather, sometimes it'll just be selfies or flowers that I bought, or a picture of one of the kids doing something, or the dog, or my food, or something. But sometimes they don't need to be individual pages. They can just live together with the other things that happened that week. And that is it. Thank you guys so much. Let's move on to getting a project done together. Welcome back, Crafty Babes. I am Andrea. We are going to work on a 8.5 by 11 planner style page. Now, this is a template that I've designed for myself based on seeing other planner pages out there, and I just decided to make mine 8.5 by 11 because I can work with that easily. It provides me a lot of space. I'm doing this format for my family album, which I am now doing monthly. As the kids get older, the family things become less and less, and so I can really squeeze a bunch of family things into 1 month. And so what you're seeing here is I've already laid my photos out, and I typically like to lay them out kind of like a checkerboard pattern so that I have a good balance of photos and cards and embellishments. And then I have pre-selected some items from my stash that I'd like to use. I definitely want to use a couple of these Color Cast Designs acrylic pieces. So I'm just trying to even them out, spread them throughout. I don't want to have too many big words, but I have a lot of plants in this particular layout, but I tried to put that little plant die cut there, and I was like, well, that's just too much. So I'm just kind of interviewing different pieces, just trying to see where some major things could fit so that I can then fit some other things around those. At this point, I basically just start cutting pattern papers out. I use one photo as a template, and sometimes I use my paper trimmer, and other times I just use my scissors. It most of the time I use my scissors because the photos are so small that, you know, they're easy to just make one simple cut. The template that I'm using is available in my shop. If you would like to grab it, there are a couple of options. The one that I'm using here is actually slightly different. It has an 8th column on the right side, whereas my templates that are for sale only have 7 columns because they're kind of meant to be 1 column for every day of the week with an open space on either the right or the left. And there are options in that. I think it's called the Minimalist Bundle. And you can just find those in my shop under digitals or memory keeping. I think they're in a couple of different categories. And then I actually just hole punch these with the Happy Planner punch and pop them into a Martha Stewart disc bound cover. And that's what I've used for a few years when I started doing this, a format very similar to this in 2020. And it's a format that I really love. I love the space that it provides me. And so I knew that when I was kind of trying to figure out what to do with my family photos, I just knew that I needed this specific format back in my life. I love the grid. And I love the big amount of space that I get. And with the templates that you can purchase from my shop, it does come with Photoshop and InDesign templates to actually put your photos in for printing. So you not only get the printable template, but you get the photo template that you can pop your photos into, print those out, and they'll be the right size to leave a little bit of extra space around the edges so that things feel like they have a little bit of room to breathe. So again, just cutting out different pattern papers, figuring out what colors can go where. I've kind of, based on the photos, I can work with greens, I can work with blues, pinks, teals, and yellows, which, you know, kind of it kind of sums up all of the colors we all love to work with. But specifically, I'm trying to find, you know, cards and pattern papers that help to bring those colors out of the photos. I always love to color match. It's really important to me. That's probably the most fun part for me, is getting just those perfect papers and cards, the perfect colors to go with my photos. And something I do a lot, which is kind of how this format started for me, was I had so many 3x4 cards, and then I moved into this, you know, smaller photo type of situation, moving away from, you know, pockets. And so I started thinking about how I could use my existing stash of 3x4 cards, and I noticed that a lot of the designs on the cards didn't take up the whole card, and you could easily trim or crop that card and still utilize the main design of it. And so anytime that I can trim or crop a design or, you know, a text or a quote from a 3x4 card, I feel so good about utilizing my stash and still being able to, you know, grab the character from that card and use it for what it was intended to be used for. So it's just a little reminder that you do not have to use things as they were intended. You don't have to only use a 3x4 card in a pocket page. You can trim part of it out, just like pattern paper. I'm trimming and you know, just utilizing the parts that I prefer. Now with a 3x4 card that's only a pattern, like let's say it doesn't have a design on it, and let's say it's not directional, let's say maybe it's like a polka dot or something like that. With this size photo, you can actually get two sizes, two cuts out of one 3x4 card. But if it's directional, or if there's something like a design in the way, then that might not always be an option. So here I feel pretty good about, you know, what I've got so far. I've got some major quotes and major points of interest with patterns and colors. So now I'm just kind of filling things in, trying to make sure that like there's not too many yellows close together, that there's not too much green grouped together. It's always, it's just kind of like a puzzle where you're just trying to figure out what looks best where. And that's super fun for me. And sometimes, or lately, for my Crafty Babe Crew exclusive videos, I have tried to talk you guys through these kinds of pages in real time. But since I kind of gave an explanation about my printing process in a previous video / earlier in this video, depending on who's watching this and when, I decided that this would be easier if I sped it up, because these particular pages actually take quite a while. I believe the unedited was about an hour and a half, and speeding it up, we're looking at, you know, still probably 40 minutes or so. So it's a lot of talking for me to have to do. So I will try to get you some real-time action here and let you know kind of what I'm thinking as I go along. And right now I am trying to figure out, you know, where I can put these teal things, but I'm feeling like there's too much of that teal color close together. So I'm trying to not only include it, but make sure that it's not just too grouped in one area. So I've got this smaller tag that I'm cutting down, and I'll put that over on the right. And then I've got the dog person and that, you know, that diagonal stripe that's got that big chunk of teal right there. So that's kind of bugging me. And then, so at this point, I'm just looking for a couple of other potential options, and I grabbed a little, a backup photo from my photo stash. I'm not 100% sure that this photo actually fell in the month of March, but the colors were good. It provides an area for maybe some journaling or stamping. And so to me, it just felt like it was something I allowed myself to do. So actually I went and grabbed my stash from issue number 24 because I was starting to feel like these colors felt familiar and remembered that, oh, I have all of these colors in issue number 24. So why don't I go see what I have to work with? And I grabbed the hearts because that kind of has all of the colors together. And then I was able to move the word strip piece over, which meant that those two teal sections with that one word strip and the grid on the right weren't competing. And then it just felt like that part felt much better. So I'm looking for some flowers here. Sometimes I don't know specifically what I'm looking for. Sometimes I'm just looking for a color. And I wasn't actually intending on anything for the top title, but I ended up finding that perfect pink with a little bit of yellow. It had enough whimsy to it and openness that it felt good. So here I'm just layering this leaf right underneath this little quote. And we're basically we're kind of at the decorating part now. I actually lost a couple of minutes of footage. And so before I got back to filming, I ended up gluing everything down. So I made my decisions about the paper and the cards, and now we'll get to actually decorating everything. I like this. I like the idea of that floral, but it feels a little bit heavy as far as like the style of it. I'm okay with the leaves that I used down on the bottom left because it's a little bit more subtle, but I'm having trouble with that big flower. So we'll address it. I kind of want to start thinking about stamps. Sometimes during this process, I will stamp at the end. Sometimes the stamps are like the main thing. And here you guys are getting a little sneak peek at a brand new stamp set that's coming out on June 8th. So if you're watching this before June 8th, you get a sneak. This stamp set is called Memory Lane, and it's got all kinds of sentiments that basically will help you scrapbook in the past, and it doesn't have to be the distant past. It can be the recent past, but I was creating a page that happened to reference an older photo or an older memory, and I didn't have anything in my stash of stamps that helped me portray what I was trying to say. And so I started thinking of phrases and sentiments, and just kind of, they all flooded out. And then with the help of my team, we came up with a few more phrases together, and now we have this stamp set. So I'm excited to get this out to you guys because I know we are not always creating pages for last week's memories. You know, a lot of us are still, behind. And I wanted to make sure that we had options if you wanted to go back and scrapbook about your childhood or anything like that. So anyway, that's going to be an option coming out soon. But for now, let's get back to this page. I have these chipboard words, and the colors are great. So I love that LE Studio puts these on acetate, because then I can play with them without the commitment of having to stick them down or having to cut out some acetate from something else. So I just cut them out, and I'm just interviewing. So I like to place things, and I'm just going to see if I can live with that. Sometimes I like to keep embellishments of the same colorway on the same color card, if that makes sense. So like here, I'm trying to see how it feels to put yellow text with some yellow floral onto yellow paper. But throughout the rest of this layout, I'm kind of not doing that. The colors are being mixed. And so that particular one is not going to live there because it doesn't fit with the rest of how this layout is going. Typically, I also will only want one like large text, and usually that's the title, which is going to be that currently March. But I feel like I can play with this little corner over here, and it won't compete too much with what I'm going to do for the main title. I say that in air quotes. I don't title my pages, but I feel like since we're doing monthly, the month has to be there somewhere. So I really like the idea of using these as like not really a subtitle, but just kind of like an element, you know, a focal element. So we'll see how that works out and what I end up doing there. Just again, looking for things that have the same colors and where I can bring that color into other spaces. Here I think is about the time where I just am kind of looking for different things. I don't want too many circles. I don't want too many, too many hearts. You're just kind of looking for what might feel right. And right now, it's this little ticket, and it's a great color. It's really helps bring the pink out of the bottom of that card, and it helps bring some of the darker shades of pink from the other places, and I like that there. So I'm kind of, again, not really feeling that flower. It's pretty heavy, and we're just thinking. And I'm thinking maybe a doily. A doily softens everything up. And even if you just use a little tiny corner, it has that perfect balance of feminine, vintage, but it doesn't take away from what you're trying to layer with it, because it's got the holes in it. You can totally see through, but it just it almost like adds transparency to whatever you're layering it on top of. And that's why I love doilies so much. I really, really, really want to make this flower work, but it's not happening. Not happening. And I feel like I'm kind of already committed to the currently March and the flower situation. I feel like if I do another word with another floral, that it just feels like the same thing. So I'm moving the currently March over. I've got the fun and the doily moved down, and I love it. Like, when like I had to interview for a long time with the situation 2 squares up, but when I move things, typically it's an immediate yes or no. So this was an immediate yes, and I love it. And it also feels good that now there's like, again, 3 major words kind of in the corner, like the currently March, the fun, and then the happy times. So I'm feeling good about that. You know, we're starting to get committed when the little hearts start coming out. Okay, we definitely are moving forward with this big title situation. I love sticker paper because I love sometimes when things can show through. It just adds a little element of interest. So now it's time to trim. I like to trim things immediately because they tend to kind of bug me and distract me a little bit from what the final product would look like. So if I know I've glued things down and I know that I want things hanging off the edge, I'm just going to go trim them right away so that I can really kind of like finish that section off and know that that's done. I have had no problems so far with adhering my acrylic pieces with my Tombow tape runner. It seems to be sticky enough. I have in the past used score tape, which is totally fine because it's clear, but it seems fine. And these are all, you know, outside of pocket pages, so I guess we'll see in years to come if they hold through the years. I decided to give that little sentiment die cut a little pop with some foam tape, just to kind of add to, we've got some texture going on with these larger pieces and the acrylic pieces. So I figured I'd give it a little dimension. I've definitely committed to this ticket, so I'm going to officially trim all of the little pieces out. And I like to use my little hole puncher here. It's actually a giant hole puncher with all kinds of different sizes. It's a We Are Memory Keepers. I have had my eye on this hole punch for probably 2 years until I finally decided to splurge and get it for myself. And it's been super handy because with having all the different sizes, little things like that, you can do the corners of labels, you can do different tag holes, sizes, you know what I'm saying. It's very versatile, very worth the, I think it was $40, but I'm okay spending that kind of money on items that have multiple uses. I am not a tools girl. I don't just like buy all kinds of fancy tools just to have them because I have a small space. And so I need things to have multiple uses. And that hole punch is definitely has earned its keep around here. So I went back to my issue 24 stuff. I knew I had this die cut with this little kind of like circle shape, and I just knew that would be a really great way to like add a little something to it without it feeling like it was competing with the big title over there. So I feel like it works, and we're gonna go with it. But I'm just looking for something else, just see if there's anything else. And unfortunately, this is the way that I wanted it, with the P halfway through the circle. But you know, when you're getting ready to like stick stuff down, I thought that only the Y went through it, so it felt a little imbalanced when we get to the end of it. But that's okay. I live. I will survive. So I went to my little labels, and I'm just adding places for me to stamp, places to journal, places to, you know, just add to the cards that are already here. I do love to just kind of add on when I can, as much layering as I can do to make myself feel like I can layer. So I really should have gone further into the circle. It would have made it feel like it was more meant to be together. So I end up having to kind of add something inside the circle to pull all of them together. So again, I will live, but I had a different vision for it, you know? And when you're working with so many different elements on a page like this, it's just hard to keep track of everything. But I still like it. And of course, I think you could all take a guess at what is going to go in the center. Spoiler alert, it'll be a heart. And see, at this point, I look at it again and I'm like, can I salvage this? But no, it would have ruined that page or that part of the paper. So I just decided, all right, well, let's just figure out how to rectify this. It feels a little better. So sometimes you just have to work with what you got. Okay, at this point, I'm ready to glue that label down because I want to stamp on it. And then I think I'm ready to put that ticket down, but I still have to leave space for some journaling. So journaling for me always comes last. And I usually like to do a little bit of just bullets or small statements about, what it was, what we did, that kind of thing. So wait a minute, do I switch? I did not even remember that I switched tickets. Oh my gosh, did I really do that? I guess I did. All right. I do like that red color. It's like it kind of brings out, maybe it was necessary. There is a lot of yellow on this layout. Okay, well, and we found a way to use the flower. But anyway, about journaling. I do still have to journal, and I'm trying to just find places to give myself for some stamped sentiments or some written statements, and that always just works out perfectly for me. I don't tend to be very wordy when it comes to my pages, so all I need is a little bit of space to kind of like say, hey, here's what was going on, here's how I felt about this, that kind of thing. Yeah, okay, so we committed to the red ticket and not the yellow one. I totally forgot. And I'm putting this off the edge here because I want to use this as a smaller journaling spot as well. So I'm not going to use, the whole card. I'll give myself a little bit of room there. So let's go through the stamps and see what kinds of things pop out as far as what I want to say. I love using stamps because they always have the words that I don't. So it's very helpful. It's very helpful to have stamps that just can tell your stories. Because, yeah, I'm not here for the words, friends. But they're important, and I know that. So I do my best to, make sure that that someone could understand what was happening when they see my pages. One thing I love doing with long sentiment stamps is stacking them. And so here I've got a real long one, but I just stamped the first couple words and then stamped that down and then made sure the stamp was completely clean before I stamped the opposite side and placed that stamp right underneath it. I organize my stamps by theme. So this whole stack right here is about half of my sentiments stamps. So anything that's got a majority of words or sentiments, I keep them together because that's typically what I'm going to look for is, am I going to look for, words to help me tell my story? Am I going to look for shapes? Am I looking for, dates and calendar types of stamps? So if you've never seen the way I've organized my stamps, I'm sure there's something on my Instagram feed about it for sure, but I organize only in 5 categories. So basics, which is like backgrounds, icons, borders, things like that. Calendar items, so anything with dates, weeks, months, years, kinds of things. Alphas, numbers, and sentiments. And so anything that I bring in to my stash has to kind of fit into one of those categories. And it's worked out really well. And that may not work for you. You may need to categorize things by manufacturer or, some other way. But this works really good for me because of the type of scrapbooking and memory keeping that I do. I don't do like big events or seasonal things, I document everyday kind of stuff. So to me, that's just how my brain works. But stamping usually, like I was saying before, usually comes at the end because it helps me to journal and get some sentiments down. We don't FaceTime with them very often because I talk to them a lot, but when we do FaceTime with them, I always try to get a screenshot just because I see them maybe once or twice a year, but we talk like twice a week. We're very close, but you know, they live a little far away, so we're just about done, and I just want to give a little thank you for being here and hanging out with me. I hope you enjoy these videos. It is rare that I turn the camera on, but I do it for my crafty babes. And if you're watching this on my YouTube channel after it's been released to the public, just know that I do enjoy making videos, but it is so different creating with the camera on. And I feel a lot of pressure. That's probably just my own, you know, pressure I put on myself, but it has a different feel. So if you like these, just, you know, enjoy them, please, because I just don't do them very often. Thank you guys again so much for being here, to all my crafty babes and my YouTube fam. Thanks, guys. I'm glad that you're here. So we are just gonna wrap this up with a stamped sentiment here. Again, I love adding little bits of layers, not too many though. I still have to make it feel like me, and it has to be clean and simple, but you can add as many layers to anything as you like. Thank you guys so much for being here, and I'll see you next time.